Good evening. I'd like to call this regular meeting of the Show Low City Council to order. By roll call, see that all council members are present at this time. We'd like to welcome those of you who are with us tonight here in the audience, as well as those who may be watching at home on City 56. This evening, we'd like to begin with an invocation. We've asked Council Member Alsop if he'd lead us in invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Council Member Leach. Those that like to join with us, please stand.
Our Heavenly Father, we just ask that you be with us tonight as we make the decisions here for the city of Show Low. But Lord, we just ask for a lot of rain. We just want to get these fields wet, get this earth wet, and we just pray that we can get some moisture here real quick. And we just ask that you protect the firefighters that's on this 377 fire. We ask that you protect them day and night and the working that they do. And we just ask that you be with each one of our military people at home and abroad. And we just ask that you protect them and guide them, give them a safe trip home. We ask in your precious name. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Just want to make a comment on the 377 fire. We're at stage 3, and part of that is no smoking and no fire. You know, we have a lot of criticism sometimes about a spark here or a spark there, what it could really happen. This fire started 20 different fires from a semi-truck driver dragging a piece of equipment, and it just let off sparks, and those sparks along the highway started over 20 fires. So it doesn't take very much. We were real fortunate that that was in an area that was cedar trees as opposed to something that was a little more forestry. And so we just encourage our citizens to continue to do what they can to comply, and we appreciate those who have complied and continue to comply with the stage 3 that we're in. Thank you very much. First item tonight is call to the public. Any citizen desiring to speak on a matter that is not on the agenda may do so at this time. Seeing nobody moved, I'll close call to the public and come back to special events. Tonight we have a treat. We have our county supervisor and county people here tonight. Steve Williams, will turn the time to you to go over the people that are here on the county budget. Let you introduce the people that are with you this evening.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, Mr. Mooter. It's a treat for us to be here. I got my hair cut and showered today, so we're excited.
Me too.
Did you? You look good.
Thank you.
We have our county manager, Glenn Kephart, with us, and our assistant county manager, Brian Layton. We have our county attorney, Brad Carline, here as well. So we're excited to be able to be with you. We have, what we'd like to do is just give a brief update on where we're at with the county and what the future's looking like, and answer any questions that you might have. We should have a PowerPoint. There we go. So for those that may be watching at home that may not be entirely familiar with county and some of the services they provide, this, am I doing the clicker?
Right there.
This one?
Mm-hmm.
Not that one. There we go. Great. Role of county. So the county is a political subdivision of the state. We're charged with providing state mandated services to citizens locally. So in doing that, we partner with
Welcome to summer.
with cities and towns, fire districts, schools, and also provide services in unincorporated communities that normally a city or a town would provide. Some of the functions of the county, there's the courts, there's prosecution, there's public safety through the sheriff, there is probation for those on who are on probation following the commission of a crime, there's the constables, the treasurer, recorder, school superintendent, the list goes on and on. Just a brief overview. Property tax in Navajo County. You may or may not be aware of this. Navajo County has the 4th lowest property tax rate out of the 15 counties in Arizona. This dollar here, this diagram shows how property taxes collected, where they go. So out of every dollar that the county collects for property taxes, you can see that about 4 cents on the dollar goes to special districts, 2 cents on the dollar goes to the health district, 2 cents on the dollar goes to the flood district, 17 cents on the dollar goes to the local fire districts, 67 cents on the dollar goes to the schools. Even though the county's collecting that for the different agencies, only 8 cents on every dollar is going to the county general fund. In the last decade, since the recession hit, in addition to the sales tax collected being lower, down at the legislature, there's been a number of state cost shifts, meaning the legislature saying, county, we want you to provide these services you have, but now we're going to charge, we're going to have that money come out of local monies as opposed to the state paying for it. And so over the last decade, there's been cost shifts to Navajo County from the legislature of almost $5 million in the last decade. We spent a lot of time down at the legislature, both preparing for sessions and during sessions, trying to work with our local legislators to minimize damages, but also get out and be proactive and try to help them see how legislation passed in Phoenix impacts us here locally. I want to compliment our representatives from Legislative District 6 and 7. They have worked well with us here and been good partners. Our total number of employees at Navajo County has declined by 16% in the last decade, trying to find more efficient ways to do government and having to tighten our belt, but the cost of fewer employees has gone up, and that's been due to retirement and the cost of health care that just continues to go up. So let's see. So a couple of things that have happened in the last decade. You can see that retirement costs for public safety have gone up 254%. There's been a 40% cost of increase in health care. And just this last year, it got to the point to where the county could no longer just tighten our belt. We had to actually start to make some cuts of programs. And so this last year, out of a general budget that was just a little north of $30 million, the county cut $2.5 million out of that. We actually eliminated 2 programs that the county had run. One was we shut down the juvenile detention center. And we are sending juveniles that are detained down to Florence. There are 8 counties that are now participating in partnerships, relocating juveniles in detention and it's the rural counties because it's just too expensive. Ideally, you'd have those juveniles here closer, but we were forced to shut that down. In addition, for those that are delinquent on paying child support, there's enforcement through the courts, and our county attorney, through his office, had been handling that in-house. And we cut that program. That program still happens. It's just handled through the Attorney General's office now, and it's a savings to us here locally. But when you take something away locally and give it to the state, sometimes there can be a delay in trying to prosecute or help to collect on past child support for those that aren't paying. This next slide, I know you can't see all of the writing on there, but this is a breakdown of cost of services by department. The most expensive two, the majority of the money is spent on both public works, that's roads, and the sheriff's office, public safety. So those are the 2 departments that tend to touch people's lives on a day-to-day basis, and that's the bulk of where county funds are spent. And then you can see how it's broken up over other departments there proportionately. So in the last decade, with the 16% of jobs being cut at the county level, those cuts have come from have been not in public safety and not in public works. We've tried very hard to keep those services that touch people's daily lives. We've really tried to not cut into those. Some upcoming financial challenges. It's been all over the newspaper and for the last several months and even last few years, but obviously Navajo County doesn't control the Navajo Generating Station. We don't own that, we don't run it, we're not part of it. Same thing with Cholla, but what we're being told at this point is that at the end of 2019, NGS, the Navajo Generating Station, will shut down. That will impact the Peabody coal mine, and in addition, Cholla is scheduled to shut down in 2025, and it's possible that it could happen sooner than that. Unless something changes with this industry, it will impact the county with another more than $2.5 million annual loss to the county. And so, like I said, unless something changes in those industries, that's what is coming. If that $2.5 million loss annually were to come, just show you what that looks like. That's the equivalent of those smallest, let's see, 8 or 9 departments in their entirety. That's their entire budget. So it would, I'm not saying we would eliminate those 9, but that just gives you a kind of a vision of what that means. So the impact of job loss in Navajo County, as I said, over the last decade, there's been a reduction of 16% of jobs have been cut at the county. If that $2.5 million were to happen annually, the county would need to cut an additional 20 to 25% of jobs at the county level. And what that means is you have a reduction from what 100 people were doing, for example, are now those services are trying to be done by 60 to 65 people. And so you can imagine what happens to the promptness and the level of service. So if that were to happen, absent some solutions to combat that, you're looking at, certainly there would need to be an impact on public safety. There's just, you can't cut anymore from some of these other departments. Slower services obviously aren't good for the citizens, and it becomes a less attractive area for economic development. So these are just some possible changes to the county and some of the different services. Options moving forward. One, we could, if nothing were to change with the coal industry, one option is to simply reduce the services that the county provides. And I guess I'm a big believer in good things can come out of tough circumstances. I think it's healthy to look for ways to do government more efficiently and to be more effective that way. At the same time, there comes a point where you just can't cut anymore or trim anymore without actually cutting programs. And so that's a real potential. Other things is if economic development, we continue to look for economic development opportunities. The county was able to secure a grant relative to broadband, a $5 million grant. It was the first of 2 grants that the county is going after, and we're in partnership with others in this. There's a federal grant that we're hoping to hear back by the end of the year. All right, by the end of the year. If that grant were to be awarded here locally, it would be a great blessing and benefit for broadband countywide, and even into Gila County, that would be a great benefit to everyone. Of course, if something changed with Navajo Generating Station or the Cholla Power Plant, we continue to talk there, but there's many, many moving parts there. If something were to change, then that could change the forecast for the county. We just completed an economic study that focused on areas of potential economic development here in the region. And we were excited about that and we continue to look for ways to partner with Show Low and other communities to help attract business. And then lastly is taking a look to see if there are additional revenue opportunities to try to compensate for the anticipated losses. As far as the revenue opportunities, the Board of Supervisors has asked our management team to prepare a report and present a report to the Board of Supervisors on what that looks like and what possibilities there might be, looking at every option we have. The last thing I'll say is we had a legislative session that was a roller coaster. I think they are every year. Teachers came out in force and were frustrated with salaries there. Going into, before the Red for Ed movement happened, we had gotten to a point that we felt like we had stopped the bleeding at the legislature and with the counties. And we weren't quite sure how that was going to impact us with those changes. And our management team and elected officials at the county level and the Board of Supervisors worked throughout the state, worked to try to help get us back on track. And again, I compliment our local representatives. We had gone down early. We've been very proactive in working with our legislators. We had gone down before the session began, and we presented to the representatives from LD6 and LD7 on what our asks were, what some of the decisions that had been made, how they had been impacting us. And they were so appreciative, they asked us if we would present to the rural caucus. And so Navajo County went down and presented to all the rural legislators at the Capitol. And that ended up being a very productive presentation. It caught the attention of a lot of the rural legislators and I think ended up helping to save counties at the end of the day this last year. So I want to express appreciation to the city of Show Low, where I live. We have a tremendous partnership, the county and the city of Show Low. And we appreciate that partnership, and we look forward to continued ways of looking of how we can benefit the people that we represent and continue to move forward. And so with that, I have any easy questions I'll take, any hard ones. I have our county manager here to help me, or Brian Layton, and then Mr. Carline as well, Mr. Crittenden.
Do you think that the new elections are going to provide a situation where the city of Show Low and the southern part of the counties will get equal treatment compared to northern part of the counties?
The new elections in November.
Yeah.
So he had to throw one out there that nobody can answer.
Yeah. So this
Great.
one I'm going to give to Brad Carline because, I'm joking.
Brad didn't hear it. He's busy.
No, Randy, that's a good question. I don't know. We'll wait and see. I will say this. Our board is made up of 5 people that if you're going to try to pick 5 people that represent the makeup of Navajo County, it's probably about as close as you're going to get. And we work very well together. And I will tell you that I think most people would have a difficult time. I'll say it this way. Most of the time, the Board of Supervisors is pretty unanimous on issues affecting the county and how we vote. There are some issues that it's not unanimous, but by and large, I think the 5 supervisors represent the county as a whole pretty well, and we tend to agree most of the time on what's best for the county.
Okay, maybe you misunderstood my question. I'm talking about the legislature,
At the state?
the state and the federal.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Our rural legislators here locally have been good partners with us, and they have heard us. What happens after the election, ask me then, and then I'll give you my prediction.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry I didn't answer
Any
your
other
question.
questions of council? We just want to thank you for the partnership that we do have with the county. We recognize that you are a great partner to work with, and we appreciate what you do for our district here and for our area as our local supervisor as well.
Great. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the time.
Appreciate
Good
it.
luck to all of you.
Thank you. Next item we have is the consent calendar. Is there any items that need to be discussed or pulled on the reviewed individually? If not, I'll read those items. We have a consideration of acceptance of the South White Mountain Sewer Line Extension, project number S0318. A consideration of a second addendum to non-commercial ground lease from Edwin L. and Loretta E. Snell to David B. Vano. We have a consideration of acceptance of Torion Lakes Unit Number 2. Consideration of the approval of list of city-owned vehicles as exempt vehicles from registration requirements. And the consideration of the minutes of the Show Low City Council meeting, joint study session of May 9th and the regular city council meeting of May 15th. We have a motion by Councilmember Alsop, second by Councilmember Vice Mayor Hatch. Any other discussion? Call for the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? See that passed 7-0. Thank you. This time brings us to new business, item 8A, consideration of recommendation to Federal Aviation Administration of award a construction contract for Show Low Regional Airport runway. Mr. Burke. We also have bid tabulations here. We appreciate you guys preparing those for us. They're available on a separate piece here with you tonight.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. It's good to be here tonight. In April 2018, City of Show Low advertised a request for proposals for construction services for the runway 624 rehabilitation project at the Show Low Regional Airport. A bid opening was held on May 15th, at which 3 bids were received. The bids were reviewed by Armstrong Consultants for conformance to the requirements. Based on the lowest amounts for schedules 1 and 2 and the bid alternative, F&F Construction was a low bidder for the project at $2,036,955.35. The following table shows the relationship of the bids to the engineer's estimate. F&F Construction had a total bid, as mentioned before, $2,036,955.35. Granite Construction came in just under $8,000 over at $2,044,708. Hatch Construction was $3,313,745.57. And the engineer's estimate was $3,833,582. One thing I will mention with the engineer's estimate is they do generally estimate high to cover any high costs. Based on staff's and Armstrong's consultants' review, staff's recommendation is that the City Council recommend to the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, awarding the construction services contract for the runway 624 rehabilitation project to F&F Construction in an amount not to exceed $2,036,955.35. The FAA will accept the city's recommendation, award the contract, and fund the grant. After the contract is awarded and the grant funded, the mayor will be required to sign additional documentation to commence the project. The city's portion is 2.5% of the contract amount, or actually, I'm looking at this and I see that I actually have an old copy of the staff summary. The amount on that, as you'll see on yours, is around $54,000. Now, the exact amount, I don't recall, but $54,000. It was
$64.47.
That's approximate. That's the city's portion at 2.5%. And attachments to this are the recommendation to award letter and the grant offer draft given to us from the FAA. Now, anticipated fiscal impact, 95% of the share going to the FAA. And again, the number is slightly different than what I have in mind since I have an older copy with me. but the city share again would be $54,655. Any questions?
During the construction here, what will that impact will that have on our, service in and out of the airport?
So the primary runway that's being resurfaced will be closed for the majority of that construction. So there'll be 30 days, the whole project will be going on. About 28 days will be the closure of that runway. It will be reopened at the end of that, while the secondary runway, 321, will be closed for a couple days. And one reason that is because the runway numbers are actually changing. Right now, the runway numbers are 624 and 321. The magnetic heading has changed slightly on the Earth, favoring one number up for each. So it'll be switched to 725 and 422. And so it would take some time to repaint all the surfaces for both runways.
Any other questions? Councilmember Kelly?
Remembering back sometime when we had some resurfacing done out there and some very large aggregate was used, and it was very expensive to deal with and not good. How close will we be watching, or do we have specialty services watching that they're going to be laying down an appropriate material? I mean, have a huge percentage spread from high bid to low bid.
Yeah.
And that's always kind of worries me a little bit.
Yes. I know in the past there has been a project where it was done where some of the material used caused some flaking. I think that might be what you're referring to.
It was just large stones in it. It was not appropriate for, I mean, I'm just
project.
hoping that there'll be good supervision and accountability to this lower bid. I love the low bid, don't get me wrong. I don't
Yeah,
want
I
to raise it.
definitely understand that. In the advertisement and in the construction contract, there will be certain portions of that process of construction that will have FAA as well as the consultant who consults for our airport, who will be checking for the quality of the material and quality of the pavement and the job being done. And it is in the contract where if it's not to the required specifications for the FAA, that the construction company will be liable and will have to replace it.
There's got to be some type of mixed design of the asphalt that meets
There is.
federal standards and things.
Yeah, there is, and that is all listed in the design for the project.
Mr. Mayor, the asphalt specification is an FAA specifications, and it is solely used on runways. So it's not a roadway type of asphalt mix, and it's specific to that use and specific to address folks' concerns like Mr. Kelly, so that we don't have pieces of aggregate escaping from the surface.
Right.
Correct.
Thank you. Will both TK still be able to operate on runway 321?
They will be able to operate. They do currently operate on that runway when the winds do not favor the other one. So it will not impact their operations.
Any other comments, questions? I'll look for a motion. Councilmember Brennan.
I move to recommend to the Federal Aviation Administration the award of a construction contract to FNF Construction Incorporated for the rehabilitation of runway 624 at Shoalo Regional Airport in an amount not to exceed $2,036,955.35, and authorize the mayor to sign the recommendation and any associated contracts or documents related to this grant.
We have a motion. We have a second by Councilmember Kelly. Is that a question? Second? Okay. Any other discussion? Call for the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? See that passed 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Burr.
Thank you.
Next item is consideration of resolution number 2018-15, adopting the tentative budget and establishing an expenditure limitation for the fiscal year June 30th, 2019. Mr. Johnson.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Can I get the machine going here? Is that on over there, Bill? Well, sir.
I thought you was going to just start at that point.
Sorry, guys, I'll get you to the top here.
You're the boss. If you say to do it, I'll do it.
Here we go.
Okay, I'm not working over here, so if you could advance for me, I'd
Just
appreciate
wink.
it. Yep. So we have the fiscal year 2019 tentative budget, $58,600,000. So that's what we're here tonight to discuss. Next slide, please. The city's goal is to be transparent in our budget process. We start the process in January, and actually even sooner with our CIP, working through the Public Works Department. But we start having our budget town halls in January. We want people to come out, get involved, and be aware of what's going on. This is just a list of all the meetings that we have had to try and get the community involved in the budget process. And then we're at June 5th tonight. The next two meetings coming up for budget will be June 19th for the final budget adoption, and then July 17th for the secondary tax rate for the streetlight improvement. When we're building the budget, we work closely with staff and the council to try and stick with the goals and objectives that have been established. These goals have been set for several years now, but we feel like they're still good, and we try to build our budget and accomplish the goals that have been set forth. This is the adopted budget comparison. So if you look at the dollar amounts, you can see the last 5 years what we've adopted our budget at. This year we're back up to closer where we've been 14, 15, and 16. In 17 and 18 we were down a little bit. The reason for the increase, there are a couple reasons. One of them is project carryovers. We also have the large airport runway project that Mr. Barr just spoke of. And then we have an additional $3 million payment that we're planning for PSPRS. So those are take up most of that. This is our budget versus what we've actually spent. We always we have a history of underspending our budget. It looks like in fiscal year 18, we're estimating to spend about $16 million less than has been budgeted. And this gives you an idea of where we might be, or it lists the number for 19, but we expect the estimated or the actual for 19 to be similar to what it has been in years past, where we underspend the budget. This pie chart gives a breakdown of the sources of revenues, where the money comes from. If operating, beginning fund balance is a large chunk. That is money that carries over from prior years that's unspent or project carryovers, and then we have a couple other smaller ones, interfund transfers and other financing sources. This gives us a little more detail of what's in the pie chart. Our beginning fund balance, which was at around 35%, is $24 million. That's carryovers from prior years. We have also the other financing sources. $4 million of that is unanticipated. If we are able to obtain any grants or unexpected revenues for projects, we will come to the council for approval to make those happen, and we use the unanticipated for that. And then operating revenues, that's revenues that we'll be collecting during the year for operations that are going on in the city, and that's at $35 million. This chart gives a detailed breakdown percentage of the operating revenues. The local taxes, it makes up 31.4%, state shared revenues at 12.6%, and utility fees at 23.9% are the largest contributors there. On this slide, we have the utility fees. revenues coming in for services in these different utility areas. Water at 4.2, wastewater at 2.9 million. And both water and wastewater, resolution was passed in 2014 that allows for a CPI adjustment. So those go up each year in January as the CPI increases. Now with sanitation, this is something that we mentioned when we last met to talk about a draft of the tentative budget. What we would like to cover here is the last 3 years for our sanitation, which is our garbage cans. The last 3 years we've had a 1 decrease, which was in 2016. The price dropped 49 cents per month. And in 17 and 18, we did not make any increases to the customers. And the reason for that is because, well, on the decrease, the fuel and the CPI index both decreased, so we saw a decrease in the rate. The next 2 years, we used fund balance to absorb the fuel and the CPI index, so we didn't pass on the increased cost to the customer. We used the fund balance to handle that. This year, when we last met, we had the fuel and CPI numbers, but we didn't have the increase for the recycling costs. If you've been following the news, and most people probably don't watch the news with regards to recycling, but it's become a nationwide problem with China and other countries not taking some of the waste and the value or the recycled material, the value of that dropping significantly. So we've been asked to consider that when we look at our rates for this year, and we've been provided with the data that shows that it's costing our contractor for sanitation more money to process the recycling. So we're looking at a rate increase of 62 cents per month. And that'll go from $14.18 to $14.80. Any questions on the last one before we?
Justin, you might want to point out what the rates were before our last contract. I think you have those there.
Yeah.
We're still getting a very good deal for sanitation rates here.
Justin, I got one quick question. So I'm sure a lot of people are recycling. We all do it. So is it going to get to a point where we're going to stop recycling?
We've heard stories that on a rare occasion, there have been some larger cities that have gone away from that because it's cheaper to take it to the landfill than it is to recycle it. But in our discussions with Waste Management, we don't feel like that's coming anytime real soon for us, but we're watching it closely now, and we'll probably watch it each month and be in conversations with them. What Mr. Mutter was speaking of, just for the mayor and council's information, in 2012, we were paying $16.50 for a single garbage can and a recycle, and I think the recycle was every other week. And the same for 2013, which was $17.18 per month. In 2014, when the new contract was signed, it went down to $14.53 per month. And then in 2015, it went up 14 cents to $14.67. And then in 2016, with the drop in the fuel and the CPI, it dropped to $14.18, and it's been at that rate for the last 3 years. And then we're proposing the rate change for 2019 at $14.80. So even with the 62% increase, we're still paying about $2 less than we were 7 years ago. So it's still a pretty fair rate, we feel. Thank you. This slide is the local sales tax as reported in the monthly manager's memo. The sales tax has been performing well in fiscal year 18. We haven't got our May numbers yet, but we feel like we're probably going to have one of our best years for the city of Show Low. And right now as far as the tentative budget goes, we've projected, or we've added to the budget $10.5 million, which is 95% of 2017's number. So we want to stay conservative even though the numbers are coming in good. On the state shared, we still have not received the final numbers from the state for state shared revenues. We did get estimates earlier this year, I believe in March, and we are showing a slight increase when compared to fiscal year 18, but we use a conservative approach to budget for these numbers as well. So we budget those at 95% of what the state estimates are. And this is the chart with the state shared revenues dating back to fiscal year 2012. And you can see pretty much year over year, we're seeing slight increases in the state shared numbers. Another source of the revenue is the intergovernmental. A lot of that's grant revenue. The airport grants is going to be a big one for us this year, which is why this number is so large. But we're also prepared if we do get the Tiger grant, or what they're now calling the Build grant for Scott Ranch. That'll be a large component of this one too. And as I mentioned before, any new grants we'll bring to the council before we make any acceptances. This pie chart shows the breakdown of expenditures. And what I look for here is I always like to see the capital as our number one, or our highest number. And this year, similar to what we did the last couple of years, it's at 35%, and personnel coming in second at 30.9, and then operations at 20.3. So we've programmed a lot of capital into the budget, which is what we like to do when we're putting the budget together to help accomplish the goals that have been set. This is a detailed breakdown of the personnel. Increase of $3,057,000 for personnel side, and $3 million of that is for the additional one-time payment to PSPRS. So if you look at the number as a whole there, for personnel, it's only going up $57,000 if you take out the PSPRS payment. So we feel like we've done a good job. We're rewarding the employees, but we're also being conservative with the dollars in personnel as well. This is a chart with the year-over-year headcount for authorized full-time equivalents. This year, you'll notice the number has increased, and that is due to the fact that we're going to be working with taking over the Pinetop Lakeside dispatch. Personnel by service area, we have similar to the county's presentation you heard earlier, public safety is a large component of our personnel at 32%, and utilities and public works combined for about 30%, and then community services at 21%, and general government at 14%. This is a breakdown of the capital by service type or service area, and you'll see the large numbers in streets and engineering at 4.8 million, airport at 4.5 million, wastewater at 4.4, and water at 2.9, and those make up the bulk of the capital. In our operating reserves, we have a full 2 months in water and wastewater. In general fund, we're not quite at 2 months because of the additional contribution to PSPRS, but we still are well above the $1 million voter required reserve amount. And we have increased the water treatment plant reserve to 1.3. And we've noted that Councilman Leach would like to look at that next year, maybe doing 200,000 or additional if we can afford to do that. There's a look at our debt service. The thing I would like to highlight on this is that the GATA bonds for the library, our last payment will be in fiscal year 19, and we will see a little bit of a drop in fiscal year 20 as far as our total debt service. But keep in mind, when we did our bonding for the public safety building and the refinance combined, they did some smoothing so that the first couple of years with those debt service payments would be light until we paid off the library. So we won't have the full $394,000 extra or available to us, but it will be slightly less, and it's because of the refinancing there. our total outstanding debt. A nice trend we're seeing here, and this just depends on the projects and the types of things we have coming up to be approved. But the way it sets now, we will definitely decrease over the next several years significantly in the outstanding debt that we owe. This chart shows the expenditures by service area, and the utilities and public works are making up most of this, and you combine the 21% of public safety, that's the lion's share of the expenditures. This gives a percentage within the general fund of where all the dollars are spent by service area or department. The police department at 36%, the airport at 20%, and community services at 13% are the larger ones. So tonight we will need a motion to accept the tentative budget, Resolution R 2018-15. The budget will be advertised in the local paper for the next 2 weeks, June 8th and June 15th, and then we'll have a final budget adoption with the public hearing on June 19th. And then on July 17th, we'll have a presentation and a public hearing for the secondary property tax levy. Any questions for staff?
Questions, comments? I just want to thank you and your staff and other staff that we have, our city manager, city attorneys, and people that have worked on this to put together a great budget, as well as the council, the effort that you guys put forth this year in making this happen, and we appreciate that we're look really good fiscally.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Need a motion if we can. I'll make it. I move to adopt resolution number R 2018-15, adopting the tentative budget and establishing the expenditure limitation for fiscal year 2019 at $58,607,593. Motion second by Councilmember Kelly. Any other comments? Call for the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? See that pass 7-0. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you.
Next item we have tonight is we need to move into recess into a special meeting of the Shoal of Bluff Community Facilities District Board to adopt the tentative budget for fiscal year 2018 and 19 for the district.
So move.
We need a motion for that.
I don't know.
We're there, okay.
Feel like
Thank you. We
everybody
have a
fell
motion,
asleep.
and so,
Second.
is there a second? Okay.
There we go. Here, we're moving again.
Thank you.
I thought maybe everybody left.
You guys ready? Just a minute.
Sound like an echo.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to call a special meeting of the Shoal Community Facility District to order. By roll call, see that all board members are present at this time. This time we have a consideration of resolution number R2018-01, adopting the tentative budget and establishing the expenditure limitations for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2019. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you to the Community Facilities District Board. We have a PowerPoint presentation prepared tonight for the fiscal year 2019 tentative budget for the Community Facilities District for the Shoal of Bluff. As a reminder, the special district was formed by the residents in 2005. This is a separate unit of government from the city of Shoal Low, and the debt issued must be covered by the district's assessed value. And the benefit of the debt and infrastructure must be for the benefit of the district. So our assessed valuations went up 17.4%. And that's our second year in a row with an increase. In fiscal year 17, it did increase, but only at a rate of 2.1%. So we're happy to see the property values going up in that area. There are two separate funds or components of the CFD. The first is the special assessment bond, and the second is a general obligation bond. First, we'll talk about the assessment, which was done in 2007 for a loan amount or bond amount of $2,014,000. Has an annual debt service payment of $150,000. And the Show Low Bluff development, the developer owns 56% of the parcels. And the unbudgeted reserve for the assessment is $230,000. On the revenue side, we have beginning fund balance of $269,000. And that beginning fund balance is from early payoffs, penalties, and things of that nature. We do an annual assessment billing. There are two billings, one in June, which is principal and interest, and the second in December, which is interest only. And that costs the resident about $650 per year. Moving to the general obligation bonds, there were two, one in 2007 at $480,000 and one in 2011 at $450,000. Estimated at the end of fiscal year 18, we will have $572,406 in reserve for the general obligation bond. Now, the last couple of years, we've been talking about working with the developer to try and get this paid off. They've shown interest. The last 2 years, they've paid the difference between our collections for debt service and what is owed, which has been about $50,000 per year. We've had similar conversations with the developer this year, and they have agreed to make an additional contribution if we use the reserve fund balance, and have agreed to help us pay this off. So the payoff is actually in process with approval from the board, and will be paid off in July 15th, 2018, which is in the next fiscal year. And if the payoff does move ahead and become complete, then the tax levy for the debt service and the M&O will no longer need to be collected. We feel like that'll be a positive thing for the development. One of the things that has gone up there over the years is there have been some complaints about the additional property tax and the rates, and we feel like this will definitely be a positive to pay off the general obligation portion. So the special assessment will still be in place, but there will be no additional property taxes and collections for the property tax notice. I have a representative here with the developer, and staff's available for any questions.
Councilmember Crittenden.
Are we increasing in the new homes, et cetera's up there in a major way, or do we have any statistics that say how much you're increasing?
So there are additional permits being pulled for that area. I don't have numbers for you tonight, but we did talk about it at staff meeting this morning, and Mr. Triascus mentioned that there is building going on in that area.
That's a real positive thing for the community up there for that development, not to have that, put them on an equal, marketing level as well. It's good.
And it's something that the developer didn't really have to do, but by doing this, they're taking away debt that's being paid by the property owners that wasn't really their debt to start with. So I feel like they've stepped up and done what they needed to do to help make that area more marketable for them and for the properties up there.
Good, good. Any other questions on the budget or any other item? I'll look for a motion. Councilmember Crittenden.
I move to adopt resolution number R2018-01, adopting the tentative budget and establishing the expenditure limitation for fiscal year 2019 at $850,145.
I think we have a motion. Is there a second? Second by Board Member Alsop. Any other discussion? Call. Yes, Councilmember.
Let me ask the same question I've asked year after year after year. If something goes wrong, is the city responsible?
The city will not be responsible.
Thank you. I want to hear that year after year after year.
That's the same answer, too. Year after year after year after year.
All right, this time I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? See that passed 7-0. Next item is approval of the minutes that we had from whenever they were. Anybody know when the minutes were?
June 20th?
20th?
No, but I'll make a motion to approve them.
Okay, we have a motion by Board Member Leach to approve the minutes of the June 20th meeting.
Oh, second.
Second by Board Member Hatch. All those in favor? Any opposed? See that passed 7-0. Seeing no other business, the CFD, I will call for adjournment of that meeting. We'll go back into our regular city council meeting in just a minute.
You didn't do it second also. I should have the second on that.
You meant the second on that, I think, sorry, thank you. Okay, this time we have item 9, summary of current events. Look to any council members for any current events. Councilmember Crittenden.
Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, we have the City of Show Low Chamber breakfast. If you want to meet a number of different business owners, et ceteras, I would highly recommend that you go. It would be great interfacing with those people, and you can get an exposure to what the city is really like. Okay.
Thank you. Councilmember Alsop.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to let everybody know that I went to the Memorial Day ceremonies at the Show Low Cemetery on Memorial Day, which had a great turnout. A lot of people there, and it was just good to listen to some of the stories and pay tribute to our men and women that paid the price for us to have what we have today. Also attended the Show Low Days in Derby Down to Deuce. We definitely have a $5,000 winner, Epic. It's over there with Desert Title. They took first place and had a great race, and it took a long time to get to those races, get them done, but we finally got the end. And next thing I like to do is thank for the quick response for all the people that responded to the 377 fire. As soon as it started, I don't think it was more than an hour, and we started having people on there and with a lot of equipment and tankers and everything else. So I just want to thank the people that started that and 311 for keeping us informed with what's going on with that fire. So it's always a scary thing when you look up in the sky and see that big old plume of smoke, and you're wondering how close it is. And some people thought it was right on downtown Show Low because you can see it clear from St. John's. So I just want to thank for their quick response. And my last thing is I want to wish a happy birthday to my city manager this week. Thank you.
Wow.
Any other council member? I'll just give a slight report for everything that we had going on in our community, from Show Low Days to the car show to, we had a great gun show. We also had a great festival at the Marketplace Festival on Saturday, and the city was very busy, and it was great what our police services did, and I don't think we had a lot of congestion or too many unsatisfied patrons, so it was great to be part of the community that was robust. This time we'll turn the time to our city manager for his report, since he's getting older.
Not until tomorrow.
Do you have any glasses he could use anyway?
Get a magnifying glass.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a clarification, the business breakfast that Councilman Crittenden mentioned is at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Oh, I apologize.
This is the final week for the Project Clean Sweep. Bulky item pickup until Friday, June 8th, with free dumping at Lone Pine Transfer Station through Saturday, June 9th, from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. They're closed from 12:30 to from noon until 12:30 for lunch. You need to take your utility statement showing current refuge service or a valid driver's license, listing your physical address, and you'll be able to drop off items at the transfer station for free. If you need more information, you can call 532-4100. In Public Works projects, our contractor will begin slurry sealing selected streets this week. beginning in Park Valley and then moving to Bison Preserve. They will be notifying the residents in the areas that they're going to work a day or two prior to the work being performed on their streets. There's a sewer improvement project in the Sierra Vista subdivision that will start next Monday, June 11th, and the work on the waterline project on McNeil continues. And in other construction projects, APS is moving power lines underground on the south side of the Deuce Clubs from West McNeil to 8th Avenue. The project will include periodic closures of the outside lane. The contractor for ADOT will continue work on US 60 widening project at the intersection of Penrod, and they will begin laying the final roadway surface next week, which will provide periodic lane closures in that area. This weekend is a Deuces Wild Triathlon, so we can expect to see traffic control measures as the competitors use the streets for their running and biking portions, and those will be marked on Saturday. The library's kicked off its annual summer reading program for all ages, and that'll begin June 11th, that's next Monday. As a fundraiser, the library is selling specially designed 2019 calendars, which feature library employees and local police and fire personnel. They're $15 each. A sample calendar is available at the library if you want to check that one out. If you have any questions on the calendar events at the library, you can call 532-4070. And as the mayor mentioned earlier in the meeting, be extra careful this fire season. We're still in stage 3 restrictions. The conditions are very dry. We have detailed information about the stage 3 restrictions on our website, and those restrictions apply across Navajo and Apache counties. In addition, as the council knows, we have forest area closures, and there's detailed maps available on the Forest Service website, and we have them posted in City Hall and also here in the library, and we know they're posted in other areas of town. So we just caution everybody to be careful this fire season. And that's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councilmember Leach?
Yeah, do we have any kind of a update or ETA when they're gonna do that intersection by the hospital? Aren't they gonna redo that whole entire intersection? Is that like this year's
Cub
project?
Lake Road, Shoal Lake Road?
Yes.
No, we've been applying for different grants and different funding mechanisms to get that rescoped by ADOT.
Okay.
And we don't have anything in the hopper at this time, but we can continue. It's our #1 project we're working with ADOT on.
Any scheduling of meetings I'm not aware of? All right, seeing no other business tonight, I'll adjourn this meeting.
Waste not want none.